The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. 2016. To expose various cover-ups and fabrications in the Middle East, Richard Shaw made an appearance on Dr. J's radio show. After the broadcast, he received some surprising information. The informant identified himself as a soldier who participated in the Afghan War in 2002 and revealed that he had shot a real, living Afghanistan giant to death. Despite losing his colleagues in the process, his superiors pressed him to keep it a secret. Upon hearing this, Shaw was of course in shock. This was because the story was very similar to what Stephen Quayle, his acquaintance who was investigating giants, told him in 2008. According to giant researcher Stephen Quayle, he found information about the U.S. Army killing a real giant in Afghanistan in 2002. With a hunch that something was strange about the story, Quayle tried to dig deeper. But then his website was hacked and he received a threatening phone call. He was unable to continue his investigation as he feared for his life. Sure that Quayle and the informant were talking about the same occurrence, Shaw decided to meet the informant to talk to him in person. The informant referred to himself as Shooter, refusing to reveal his name. The following is his story. Shooter and his unit were sent to the ragged, mountainous terrain of Kandahar, Afghanistan. The U.S. Army had received information about high-bounty Taliban executives nearby. After setting up their base camp on the mountains, the unit sent their Alpha team to the targeted area. However, nothing was heard from the team during both the first and second check-in times, and they did not show up at the unit rendezvous point. Shooter said that he thought that the Alpha team had been ambushed by the enemy. A second team called the Bravo team, which included Shooter, was then sent to the same area. The Bravo team scoured the area, going as far as 4 kilometers from the scouting team's last checkpoint. Unfortunately, they weren't able to find anything, at least not until a team member discovered a narrow cliff path with goats walking on it. The team then proceeded to follow that path. As the path gradually widened, they found themselves in a large vacant lot. There was a large cave and a cliff beyond that lot. The team was greeted by the sight of numerous bone fragments in front of the cave. What was worse? The Alpha team's broken military equipment and radio receivers littered the ground. The team immediately spread out in an open formation. Upon seeing the broken equipment and scattered bone fragments, Shooter was convinced that it was nothing but a wild animal attack. However, at that same moment, a humanoid figure came out of the cave. It was a giant. According to Shooter, the giant was approximately 4.5 meters tall. He was wearing worn-out clothes, with a long spear and shield in his hands. Despite having plenty of war experience due to being part of a special unit, the team members were all humans after all. They froze at the unrealistic sight. Dan started shooting at the giant, which soon made the rest of them follow. The giant, however, was much faster and agile than they anticipated. Jumping from a few meters away, the giant skewered Dan with his spear. The giant then immediately got in position, preparing himself for another attack. Taking advantage of the brief defensive pause, Shooter and his team fired intensive shots.
Shoot him in the face. Shoot him in the face.
Although he could not remember who called out the order to aim for the head, everyone instantly followed it and shot at the giant's face. The giant soon collapsed. It may vary long in detail, but in reality it took 30 seconds to take down the giant. Dan died at the scene. To bring this incident to light, Shooter had to testify about it not only to the radio show host Shaw, but to others as well. He said that he would always burst into tears when describing Dan's death. Additionally, he was made to sign non-disclosure paperwork and rewrite his after-action report the way the superiors ordered him to at the time. Shooter, who had been mourning his colleague's death for more than a decade, finally decided to publicize the incident after listening to Shaw's radio show, which focused on exposing various cover-ups and corruption. "The truth must be revealed for Dan's sake," he said. It is said that the giant died with his lower jaw blown off. His face was massive that his jaw looked like a cave, and his eyeballs were as big as an adult's fists. A helicopter arrived for support. Unable to land near the cliff, it only dropped a cargo net to the ground. The team then proceeded to put the giant in the net, connecting it to the helicopter. As if his weight was not already a problem, his unpleasant body odor made it worse. Apparently, it was so bad that the entire team couldn't breathe, and they had to take breaks to catch their breath during the process. The giant was airlifted to Bagram Airfield and was later relocated to Ohio, a state in the U.S. Following the reports from Shooter, the U.S. Army testified that they were indeed aware of what had transpired. Additional testimony from the pilot who airlifted the giant to the airbase was quite detailed. He was a part of the 6-member transport team operating the CH-47 Chinook military helicopter. They were in charge of providing military supplies from the skies of Afghanistan. One day, they received an urgent order from their superiors. "There is a dead body that needs to be transported. Disable all cameras before coming to the scene." An unusual order indeed, but they proceeded to follow the orders. Upon arriving at the scene, they were greeted by the sight of the dead body of a giant, slumped over on a large wooden pallet. This is what the pilot had to say about what he saw. The man was ridiculously big. He had long scarlet red hair, a red beard, and his jaw was smashed, maybe because he was shot. His upper teeth remained, but he was double-toothed, which was unusual. He was muscular as well. He had 6 fingers and 6 toes each, and they were black. Maybe because they were dirty. His fingers were pointy. He did not look like an Afghan, but rather a Caucasian. Also, he smelled awful. This is the actual testimony from the pilot's voice recording on George Nourie's Coast to Coast AM show. To measure the size of the giant, the transport team members lied down next to him. They even tried measuring the combat boots he was wearing. Considering the width of the pallet, his approximate height was estimated to be 360 centimeters. As for the weight, if we take away the pallet's weight, the giant's weight would be approximately 499 kilograms. The host of Watchers X, Dr. L.A. Marzulli, inferred the appearance of the giant's spear and shield, as testified by Shooter and the pilot. Surprisingly, the shield's shape was quite similar to that of an ancient Roman shield. This suggests that a giant's lifespan far exceeds that of a human, meaning that giants may have existed since ancient times. There are numerous records of giants in ruins and literatures, in different locations all over the world. As he was investigating the native inhabitants of the Kandahar Mountains, Dr. Marzulli discovered more shocking facts. The native inhabitants knew of the giant's existence, and he was held in high esteem as the god of the mountains. Upon being asked when did they start serving the giant, the native inhabitants answered, "They have existed for a long time." What was worse, the inhabitants said they would sacrifice human beings to him on a regular basis. A good number of bones scattered around the cave were, in fact, human bones. Later, in 2019, there was a new report from a soldier who was discharged from military operations in Afghanistan.
A lot of the reconnaissance missions we were sent on were direct missions to see if we could spot one of these giants. What we saw was roughly an 8-foot-tall man running through the desert. Now, if this is some kind of a super soldier of some kind, that's something new to us. I don't know what the hell I saw, and nobody ever briefed us about what it was. Well, I know what I saw. And I can tell you right now, the stories of the Kandahar giant are true.
The person that they killed actually was 3 times the size of a man, had extra digits on their hand and digits on their feet, and had red hair, and a special unit had come in and wanted this target.
It is said that legends of cannibalistic giants have been around for a long time in China, one of Afghanistan's neighboring countries. Do the descendants of giants truly exist somewhere, still untouched by civilization? This has been Strange Night.